quick video. Today we're gonna take a look at some Paldean Pokemon for the new generation, Generation 9, and how good they might be in the Go Battle League when they come into the game. The new game is out now for a little bit longer, so yes, you're going to see like new Pokemon. They are not officially announced yet, but I mean, every PokeTuber already puts them on thumbnails anyway, so I'm very late with it anyway. So if you don't want to get spoiled the entire way, then you might want to skip it. Otherwise, please leave a like on the video. This is a ton of work to figure out all these stats as well for Pokemon Go. So let's take a look at the first one. You're also going to see all the images for the Pokemon, so if you don't know the names, you don't know how they look like. First Pokemon going to be Screamtail. This Pokemon, as you can see here, has insanely low attack, has insanely high defense, and insanely high stamina. Issue is the fast move. It doesn't have a good fast move, sadly, in the game so far. There's Bite, then Headbutt, and Pound. Of course, like all those charge moves here and fast moves are based on what they can learn in the main series games. We don't know yet if they're actually going to get this. But this Pokemon itself looks kinda like a weird form of the Wigglytuff or Jigglypuff. This is like the ancient version of it, which is like a thing in the new games. They are like paradox types of Pokemon that are either in the future or from like ancient times, which is pretty cool. There are more Pokemon like this coming up as well, mainly especially for the Master League, because they all have very insanely high stats, and those stats here were kind of distributed for the defensive values here, which is amazing, because if you take a look at the level of this Pokemon, it's only level 23, and having those stats compared to like an Umbreon or an Azumarill that's XL, at those stats you're going to already know how good this thing going to be in the Ultra League. We're going to take a look at this tomorrow in a different video, I guess. But taking a look at this right now, this is most likely the best moveset that it could learn, and we will see. It's decent, it's not crazy good. All the dark types in the meta will war you, of course. There's not a lot that you can do against those right now, but if you are not a dark type and you're kind of neutral, like you're going to see some matchups here, like Diggersby, even like Araquanid. You actually win against Araquanid, which is funny. Against a ton of Pokemon here, even against an Obstagoon where Bite is not very effective, you still have a good chance. And there are a ton of Pokemon that this Pokemon actually still beats just because of the insane stats. So if this Pokemon ever comes into Pokemon Go, even at level 20, if it's like in a raid or whatever, you would still be able to get this for the Great League, which would make this Pokemon insanely strong. So let's take a look at the next one real quick. Next one going to be the Earthworm. The Earthworm is a Pokemon that has a very decent move pool. It's a pure steel typing here, so it's a little bit, I don't know. It's a definitely good defensive typing. You see the stats already, 2000 and nearly 100 is in terms of the overall stat product is pretty decent, but also not too crazy. There are not a ton of Pokemon that have very good values. In general, it goes mainly based on values, the list that I'm going to show here. There are not a ton that have really good values, but this one is pretty decent-ish. We see Mudshot, Body Slam, Iron Head, and this Pokemon is okay-ish, but I think it's mainly going to be something that will be a pretty decent Pokemon in those restricted metas, like certain cups or whatever. In this, I feel like it just doesn't have the bulk or whatever for it, but steel typing itself has a lot of potential. It also would have like something like Earthquake, which would destroy other steel types, but for example, G-Force is just a little bit better, but still a Pokemon that might be also very interesting for the Ultra League. Next on the list is going to be Daxbon. Daxbon is a very cool Pokemon. It's a baked form of a bagel or whatever it is, and this Pokemon has access to very cool moves like Charm and Psychic Fangs. If you ever get this would be amazing. Of course, you could also have like a little bit less good moves there, but it's most likely going to be a Charm user with a very good overall stats, which is going to be nice. This is, I think, the highest Charm user we have in terms of overall defensive stats. Of course, Charm got nerfed, which is already in here as well, but if you take a look at this, we will see an overall result which is insanely strong. But also, I think without it, it most likely still be pretty decent, still okay-ish here. Depending on the moveset, it will be very, very decent. But as a Charm user, it's one of the most bulkiest ones, which is nice. It's just a pure Fairy type, so it's not something crazy in terms of like, I don't know, Fairy Normal would be cool for like Ghost types or whatever. It's just a pure Fairy type, which is also kind of nice, to be fair. Has of course those answers that you usually would expect, but I think also in the 2 shield, because it's a Charm user, it would be a little bit better. Exactly, in 2 shields you would win a ton more matchups. The next Pokemon, Tinkaton, is a middle stage evolution of one of the new Pokemon, which is going to be a Fairy and Steel type Pokemon, which is going to be amazing. This one will need to be best buddied and or 100% version here, which would get directly to nearly 1500 there, which is amazing again. Pretty decent overall stats, has access to Fairy Wind, which is nice, Play Rough, Flash Cannon, doesn't really learn any bait move-ish, but this should be still fine to do some nice damage here. Wins 20, loses 20. I think it has a lot of potential, especially if it gets like some restricted metas, but the typing itself, you know it already from something like the Mawile, the typing itself is very nice. And what is also very nice is going to be the evolution here, Tinkaton. Tinkaton will be even better Pokemon most likely. Has access to Play Rough, Flash Cannon as well, again Fairy Wind, and you don't need to level it up too high here with level 25.5, and you see it's a little bit better, wins like one more game there, like definitely a cool Pokemon. Like whenever this comes into the game, I would expect this to change up the meta a little bit or like be at least viable, which is very, very cool. Next Pokemon going to be Paldean. This Pokemon is just a dolphin, to be fair. It has a special form kind of similar to something like the Darmanitan, for example, which has a Zen mode. This has like a special form that's even stronger than the main legendaries in the game, which is crazy. But here we're going to have something with the close combat, which is definitely a move that I expected to get, because like the other form is like kind of fighting-ish Dolphin, so I think we're gonna get close combat anyway. Awkward Tail, which I hope that we get, we really need to get it, and Water Gun is the best fast move. We also would have Charm, but like this, we're going to see here, it's actually pretty decent as well. Like this Pokemon would have a lot of potential. The stats of this Pokemon would be very nice, and I can't wait to get Paldean. The next Pokemon going to be another middle stage evolution. You kind of want to have it at level 51 again. This is going to be a Sword stack and ACL stack, as this one has access to Smackdown, which most likely gets, also Mudshot, which it might get, Rock Slide and Earthquake, and some other moves as well, of course, but this is kind of nice for this Pokemon. Let's take a look at what this thing can do. It can function as a pretty okay-ish Smackdown user, would potentially have access to Mudshot, which would make it definitely way better. I have to see what this thing going to get, but it has a very nice move stat product as well, and the evolution going to be also very nice, but we're gonna take a look at this in the Ultra League in a different video. Honestly, the Pokemon I'm most excited for going to be Clodsire, which is going to be the evolution of the Paldean Wooper, which is going to be a ground and poison type, like the now nerfed Nidoqueen. But this boy, look at the stat product, holy hell, this thing is going to be insanely bulky. The stamina is insane of this Pokemon, like you going to tank so many hits with this, and it's going to be having the perfect typing that you already know from Nidoqueen and love from there. You're going to have some nice moves as well to cover with it. This is also not even the best moveset that you can most likely run. Would have, I think, some bait moves as well. It would also have access to Poison Sting and Mudshot. Whenever we got this Pokemon, which I think going to be one of the sooner ones, is going to flip the meta definitely. Like this Pokemon going to be insanely strong. Next Pokemon here going to be a cheap-ish version, I guess, for something like the Buzzwole. It's just going to be a bug type with access to Counter. Counter it learns on its normal move pool, which means we might get this actually with Counter. Otherwise, there's Bug Bite and Struggle Bug. If we get it with Counter, it actually has a good potential. Like it's not going to be crazy just because bug typing is horrible, but it learns a Lunge Wire egg moves, so like it definitely does learn it. Most likely we're going to see something like the Exeter though, so I don't really expect it to see that, but otherwise even with Exeter it still has some potential to do, and in like special cups I think Spider-Ups might be really cool. The final one for this video going to be the Toadscruel. That's basically like the own version of their Tentacruel there, which is going to be kind of like, I don't know, mushroom-ish or whatever it's supposed to be. But this Pokemon is a grass and ground type, like Torterra, triple or 4-time weakness basically against ice types. Ice types going to destroy this, but it will have access to a Mudshot, which is going to be amazing. Power Whip and Earth Power. Also theoretically something like Seed Bomb would be available, or Magical Leaf, or Bullet Seed. All of those would be available. Has a very decent stat product there as well, but the moveset and the typing itself can give it a lot of potential. Of course, Ice types going to wreck this. Of course, also Flying types going to wreck this. But if you face anything else, you're going to be pretty fine with this, and I think it's going to be a fun Pokemon. But yeah, that's going to be it for the Great League version of this. We're going to see you then for tomorrow, most likely, for the Ultra League version of this kind of video.